Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about scope in JavaScript. So scope like this. Um, Scope is basically, it's the context of the current code that we have going on. So we're usually talking about it in terms of a declaration. So if we say var x is equal to 5, this all the code in this file is whatever section of code that we pick belongs to a certain scope. So scope is defined either in the global context, or it can be within a block, like these curly braces define a block in JavaScript where we can have some other things going on. Like if we have let me just type out some examples to begin with. Like let's do it like this. Var x equal. I'm going to actually use let. So we're going to say let x equal 10 in here, and we're going to say let x equal 5 there. So the thing is that when we are inside these curly braces, the x, it's not. The x is not, the variable has not been read from the outside once we're in the braces. So like we can do an example here, console.log x. We're going, what do you think the answer is going to be here if we console log this out? First of all, we shouldn't be able to even do two lets in a row, like defining the same variable twice in the same file, but since this is scoped inside of the braces, we're going to get maybe a different answer than we might think. Let me zoom out here a little bit. So you can see that 5 prints to the console here, which means that the second one was not read. So that's because when we say x inside of here, it means a different thing. It's just like the x. We can redefine the same variable inside of the block, and it's not going to affect how we read the variable outside of the block. So like we can even go in here and say console.log x like that, and we're going to get two different answers when we print this to the console. So I'm going to just have to keep zooming out here. The first thing that's printed is 10, so the code is reading down. It goes console.log 10, and it's not reading the outside value there. But then back down in here, we're reading, back in the global context, we're reading console.log x. X in the global context is 5, but x in the block level context here is equal to 10. If we go ahead and remove the declaration keyword here, then actually what is going to happen is that we get 10 printed twice, because now x is being redefined inside that block. So it's actually taking the global x and redefining it. So this means that we can have an x variable in here and let it be different, but we can still like allow ourselves to have a global one that's not the same as that. So this only works with the let keyword when we're talking about curly braces, and it also works with const. So it works with let and const. Like we could do that, we get the same results there. Now that I put the declaration back, we get 10 and 5. But if we use var, var does not recognize the block scope. So if we use the var declaration, it's just going to overwrite the x even inside of the block, and then we're going to console.log 10 out 2 times here because x was overwritten. So this can be useful if we want to perform an operation inside of a code block. Like maybe we have some manipulation going on outside here, and then we want to just like perform some function in here, like we can say like const input equals document.query selector, like that, dot value. And then this way, like we don't need to think too much about like variable names, for example. Like we don't have to worry about them getting overwritten later on or other places in the code, because sometimes when you're coming up with the variable names, you have to make sure that it's not going to be something so simple that it's going to get reused somewhere else. But if we have it wrapped in a block, we can just kind of like write we don't have to worry about the code being so reusable, because it's only being used once inside the block here, as long as we're declaring the variables using those const or let keywords. So we could say const input equals that, and then maybe we just or maybe we're just wanting to do something with the value, like we want to get value, like something like this, input value, and we can say maybe we want to like multiply the input value times 10. So we can have like a let's do a let x like that, and then we can say x equals input value times 10, and then down here we would be able to use that new x that has been modified by something in the DOM, but the input value variable is no longer valid like outside here, like, so we can't this is not I don't have an input in the DOM right now, so I'm just gonna I'm just gonna do something like this. But what I'm trying to say is that we can redefine input value later on, and it's not going to mess up our code. Whereas if we removed these curly braces, we would get an error because there's two declarations. So that's one example. Let's talk about also with functions, function scope. In a function scope, everything inside of the function is scoped only inside of that function, and that includes even the var keyword. So here we can say var apples equals 12. If we go outside and we try to call that, we are not going to get any result. It's going to tell us apples is not defined, because anything, it doesn't matter what keyword we use inside of the function, you can only use that inside of the function. However, you can use variables declared outside of the function inside of the function. So if we have const original apples equals 12, then we can go in the function and we can print that out. So like this, we'll still be able to read that value inside of the function. Generally, we want to try and avoid using variables outside of the function. Like, we want to compact everything inside of the function if it's possible and if it's practical. That's like a best practice. Or we want to like pass it as a parameter, not just use it as the variable, because that way the function is more reusable. Like if we did it like this. Okay. It would be better to write this like that. Okay. Because like we get the same result here, but we're using a parameter instead of the global variable. And because of that, this function can continue to be reused even if we end up changing this. Like, it's not going to break the function if we change this to something else. Or if like it becomes like, if we wanted to rename the variable to that, we wouldn't have to modify the function to keep using it. We just have to modify the places where it's declared. Whereas if we were using the actual apples variable in here, like this, then the whole function would have to get modified for us to be able to use it correctly. Now the function's not really big here, so it doesn't make that much of a difference, but we want to avoid having to make those kinds of, like, having to modify something inside the function just because we modified something outside the function. We would prefer to, if we modify a variable outside of the function, or variable name, the function itself is not going to have to change, because maybe because then we're risking, like, breaking the structure of the function if we have to redesign it and stuff like that. But so anyway, that's one kind of application. But yeah, that's some talk about scope and JavaScript scope and scope within functions as well.